Hi and hello again. Today we are going to learn about supply and demand. You must have heard that economics is all about supply and demand. Is this true? We will touch upon this claim at the end of the lecture. But first we must learn the nuts and bolts. The 5 concepts that we will cover are reservation prices, the law of one price, the equilibrium price, consumer and producer surpluses, and Pareto efficiency. Today, however, we will cover only the first 3. The remaining 2 will be covered in the next lecture. All markets are similar when it comes to supply and demand, so we will use a simple housing market as an example. In our housing market, there are 7 families who want to rent apartments at the center of the city. If a family would not succeed in finding an apartment in the city, it would not be homeless. It would find an apartment in the suburbs for a rent of $1,200. Each family has a maximum price that it is willing to pay for an apartment, and this price is called the reservation price. For family A, it is $6,000. For family G, the poorest family, it is only $1,500. A reservation price is firm. If offered an apartment at $6,000 and 1 penny, family A would not take it. At $6,000, it would be indifferent between taking it and not taking it. At a penny less than $6,000, it would be better off taking it than living in the suburbs. There are 6 apartments offered for rent at the center of the city. These apartments are identical, same floor, same view, same size, same appliances, same proximity to public transportation, same everything. Each apartment is owned by a different landlord. The landlords are competing with each other. If one landlord has a tenant and another does not, the second landlord would try to lure the tenant to her apartment by lowering the rent. There is no cost to owning an apartment or to living in it. No maintenance, no utilities, no taxes. Therefore, if all a landlord can get for an apartment is 1 penny, she will take it. 1 penny is better than nothing. But of course, she would be happier with a higher rent. Under all these conditions, who would get the apartments and for what price? We are going to analyze this question in 2 steps. First, we are going to find out whether different families could end up paying different prices, reflecting their different reservation prices. We start by assuming that family A is paying $5,500 and family F is paying $2,000 for its apartment. The apartments and the rents are shown in the diagram. Apartment 1 is blue, apartment 6 is orange. Family A knows that it is paying more than family F for the same quality apartment. It is upset. What can it do about it? Pause the video and ask yourself, what would you do in the same situation? What family A could do is go to the landlord of apartment 6 and offer to pay a rent that is higher than the $2,000 family F pays, but lower than the rent that it itself pays. Suppose it offers the landlord $5,000 for apartment 6. They end up in the situation of round 2. Family A moves to apartment 6, paying a lower rent than it paid for apartment 1. Family F is without an apartment, but apartment 1 is vacant. The landlord of apartment 1 agrees to a rent of $2,000, and family F moves in. But family A is still upset, because while it did reduce its rent, it is still paying more than family F. So it comes back to the landlord of apartment 1 and offers $4,500 for it. The landlord, of course, agrees because $4,500 is more than the $2,000 she's getting from family F, and we end up in round 3. But family A is still paying more, and it is therefore still upset, and in the same way we get to round 4. This switching of apartments continues until family A and family F pay exactly the same price. The fact that family A has a higher reservation price makes no difference at all. This brings us to the law of one price. The law of one price states, in a competitive market, identical goods sell all for the same price. These are cereal boxes at Target and Walmart. We are going to ignore the 1 penny difference and say that the prices are the same. You may be tempted to suspect that Target and Walmart are colluding, that they have agreed on a price. We don't know, but since sellers know that other sellers will match their prices, this does give an incentive to sellers to charge high prices. They know that other sellers will not undercut them, because in a price war, all sellers lose. Of course, a new firm that enters this market would benefit from cutting the price, because this way it will gain entry. But when entry is expensive, the existence of several sellers does not guarantee competition. The Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, an international organization, is concerned that when firms use computer programs to make decisions of what prices to charge, this facilitates an implicit collusion between them. Nothing appears wrong when all sellers buy the same computer program, so they all buy a program that leads to high prices. There is yet another seller of cereal boxes, Instacart. It appears that Instacart violates the law of one price, but it only appears this way. The cornflakes are of course the same, but the mode of delivery is very different. Instacart has a separate delivery charge. Goods that are identical in all respects do sell for the same price. The law of one price is, of course, not really a law. There is no government that says that cornflakes must sell for $3.29 a box or for $3.28 a box. Nevertheless, the compliance with the law is practically absolute. Thou shalt not kill is the Bible's law, but many people breach it every day. The law of one price enjoys much greater compliance. Let's see it's working in the goods market. Goods produced in China are cheaper, and consumers rush to buy them. US-produced goods are expensive, and Chinese consumers, just like US consumers, avoid them. When it comes to goods, the enforcer of the law of one price is us. We are the enforcers of the law of one price. The law of one price works also in the labor market, where cheap Chinese labor displaces more expensive American labor. The enforcers in the labor market are employers who seek low-wage workers and workers who seek high-wage employers. But while the law of one price or of one wage is nearly impossible to break, there isn't a law that says that the one wage has to be low. How the one wage is being determined will be covered in future classes. Let's return to our housing market. Now that we know that all families will pay the same rent, we are ready to tackle the question of what would this rent be. The rent for the occupied apartments cannot be more than $2,250. Otherwise, there would be a vacant apartment, and the landlord of that apartment would lower the rent. But what would happen if the rent were lower than $1,500.01, say $1,300? In that case, family G will either have an apartment or it might try to get one by offering a higher rent and displacing a wealthier family. But that wealthier family would not sit idle. It will start a price war with G, and this will raise the rent above $1,500. Therefore, the uniform rent that all tenants pay must fall between $1,500.01 to exclude family G and $2,250 to assure that all apartments are occupied. We are ready to define what an equilibrium price is. A price is an equilibrium price if all buyers who are willing to pay it can find sellers, and all sellers who are willing to accept it can find buyers. G is unable to get an apartment, but this does not violate the definition of equilibrium because G is not willing to buy at that price. The demand for apartments can be displayed in a chart. The descending line in the diagram is the demand for apartments. The vertical axis indicates the rent, while the horizontal axis indicates how many apartments are wanted at that rent. When the rent is above $6,000, no apartments are demanded. At $6,000, one apartment is demanded by family A, and so it is for any price between $5,250 and $6,000. But at $5,250, the number of apartments demanded increases to 2, and so on. When there are 6 apartments available, the supply curve intersects the demand curve over the range $1,500.01 and $2,250. When the supply decreases to 3 apartments, the range of market prices increases. We conclude that when the demand does not change, decreasing the supply causes prices to increase, and increasing the supply causes the prices to fall. The demand curve may also move. The orange line depicts the demand when the number of families with each reservation price exactly doubles. For instance, with the blue line, there was only one family with a reservation price of $6,000, but now there are 2 families with that reservation price. With the original demand, there were 2 families with a reservation price of $5,250, but now there are 4. The increase in demand causes the rent to increase, and we can see that a decrease in demand would cause the rent to fall. So is it all about supply and demand? Yes, once these have been set, but often they are set by government policy, and the question is then whether the policy is utilitarian efficient. For instance, in cities around the United States, the supply of housing right now is too low to meet the need of low-wage workers for housing. San Francisco is one such city. Workers from Silicon Valley earn very high salaries and drive prices up beyond the means of most workers. But CityLab explains that the focus on these high-wage workers is a diversion. The high price is merely a reflection of the low supply of housing, and the reason for the low supply is zoning. Workers who are unable to find housing should blame zoning, not tech, CityLab says. Wealthy districts work hard to prevent new housing. Whether the power to zone will be wrested away from local government is a question of political power, not of supply and demand. So here is some food for thought of a topic that we will discuss in future lectures. What would be the effect on the price of stocks if the Fed raised the interest rate? What would be the effect on the price of stocks if Social Security benefits were raised? These are two questions that involve both the tools of supply and demand and an analysis of how supply and demand are determined. See you next lecture.